What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic, and over here is my buddy Hungover John. If any of you saw the stream that we did last night, or at least Wednesday night when you see this, he imbibed quite a bit.
Yeah, one of us made some not bright decisions in mixing the alcohol that he chose, and I haven't drank in a long time, and that beer was good. What was not good was the wine on top of the beer, and now I'm waiting to die. So here we are.
Oh man, you haven't drank so long you're making rookie mistakes.
Yeah, that was I'm a stupid man, and I'm feeling it today. Let me tell you.
Anyway, we have an album review for you, and one that we have been anticipating because we're longtime fans of this band. We're going to go over the latest offering from Pelican, Flickering Resonance. This comes out on the 16th of May on Run for Cover Records. This band formed in 2001 in Evanston, Illinois. This is their 7th full-length overall. I have been a fan since their debut EP, simply self-titled. And years ago, we actually reviewed the last one, Nighttime Stories. It was actually Tommy and I. So that's how far back that goes, because it has been quite some time since their last one. I actually got a chance to see them live on that tour and got this t-shirt and got a whole bunch of posters. One you definitely see in my main room, and two that you don't because they're in other places in my house. Anyway, for those that don't know, this is instrumental, post-metal / sludge. I don't know, like they're kind of hard to describe. Post-metal definitely works. Instrumental 100% works, even though they've had a couple of tracks with, various vocalists. But for the most part, this band just kind of latches on to riffs and grooves and kind of just takes you on a journey.
I got into these guys a little bit later, somewhere in between the Fire in Our Throats Will Beckon the Thaw and then City of Echoes. When I first got into bands like Pelican, the Russian Circles, ISIS, stuff like that, I'm sure that I've heard Pelican much sooner than those albums are concerned, but those will be the two, mostly City of Echoes, that I really latched onto.
I've been looking forward to this one, namely because this band doesn't put out albums very often, and honestly, didn't seem like there was a lot of build up or anything, to oh my god, Pelican's putting out a new album. It was just, hey, here's a new Pelican track, by the way, new Pelican album, which I'm totally fine with. And I mean, baseline, I could 100% just say that this is a Pelican album and kind of leave it at that, but where's the fun in that? We got to talk about it. This is Pelican doing what Pelican does, which, I mean, honestly, when you look at their music, it is kind of a broad stroke. It's not always heavy. It's not always dense and dark. Sometimes it's very shimmering and bright. Sometimes it's way more atmospheric. Sometimes it's just flat out riffs. Again, what we've all come to know. I absolutely love that album. This is kind of a mix of all that. In fact, the first half of this album, I would say, is kind of bright and very summery. Legit, it's kind of like the weather outside before the storms eventually come here and just smash the shit out of us.
Which is going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying, at least. And it pretty much starts out just like that. It opens up with Gulch, very mellow melodies, harmonies, big, lush, open spaces. For the most part, the opening is just a reverbed, clean tone, kind of sets up the pace for the album. You do get some big riffs, some very straightforward grooves. Evergreen kind of carries on that feeling, albeit it's a little bit heavier, but again, you're talking about a drive through the mountains or like walking through a big open field, and it's really calm and serene and kind of trance-inducing. A lot of Zen moments going on.
Yeah, it's very bright. A lot of the first part of this album, the opening 3 tracks, Gulch, Evergreen, and Indelible, they're very scenic. You can kind of just see yourself driving on country roads to this. There's no road construction or asshole drivers. It's just very smooth. And that's the music, too. In terms of, transitions and such. These songs aren't as much about, the big post-metal builds. And even when they get heavier, they're very, light and airy. Very comparable, again, to, Russian Circles. Also, Cave In. And I would 100% say Hum, too. There's a lot of, almost kind of shoegazy moments, but played through, almost kind of like a stonery filter, I guess you could say. The vibe, again, is bright and shimmery, but again, it's got some heft to it. And heft kind of shows up in increments. A lot of these songs are, long, drawn-out builds. Cascading Crescent, which I believe was the first single they had, is probably the heaviest track on the album. It is definitely more focused on more aggressive, chuggy riffs. You still have all the lush melodies that show up on the rest of the album, but this song is definitely more biting, a little bit more intense overall. Really cool, syncopated, heavy chugs, and Guitar work in here, the guitar work is honestly the thing that I center on, namely because there are no vocals, there's no lyrics. So the guitars kind of supplant those in terms of like communicating the vibe of the song. And guitar work in here, a lot of it is about the layering and the harmonies. And these guys are just absolute pros in terms of like counter melodies, distance, atmosphere. And they weave it all together in these really intricate riff patterns that don't necessarily seem that intricate because a lot of it is like heavy droning and such. But when it comes down to the melodies and how they, play off of one another, it's really fucking awesome. You frequently get like, cool harmonized tags. Sometimes the droning sections will actually kind of build into like big harmonies and such. Not really much in the way of solos. In fact, I wouldn't really call any of the stuff in here like solos, but you have lead melodies that come in. And again, how they play off of these like heavy droning riffs and these bright shimmering melodies. It creates this really cool contrast because a lot of the album feels, again, like very light and very airy.
Yep.
But it's still very dense.
The production on here, I think, is very well done. The guitars have a warm, lush tone to them. The drums are about as natural as the sound gets, although there were times where I could make comparisons to a Kurt Ballou mix just because of how like deep and rich the kick tones are, or the toms, or that big thwack of the snare. If he's not playing on a Tama kit, I would be surprised, to be honest. It's got that big, rich, full sound. But the layering, too, in the mix, it's just done really well. Nothing at any time seems buried. Like, everything that they add just seems like a very natural thing.
It's very rich sounding, and that works really well with all the, like, cascading melodies. Like, some of it sounds like, like rain falling through leaves and such, like kind of that sort of effect. And again, the give and take between like the heavier sections and those sections, like specific resonance, opens up a little bit more up-tempo, a little bit more aggressively, or at least aggressive, for them. Like, I wouldn't call a lot of this super heavy, even though this band has definitely done some really heavy albums, like Australasia is a fucking monster. But there's a lot of like, just sort of like playing with tension and releasing it in different ways. That whole song goes into this really cool, clean bridge, and doing the post-metal thing, building in layers and building up to these huge crescendos, which isn't done a lot on here. It's actually saved for like, a handful of songs. A lot of this is kind of just, I don't know, like fluid, like just like kind of caught in a groove, jam session. Let's keep building on it. And, like not really like, building like the peaks and valleys as much as like just kind of hanging in kind of a warbling little plateau.
But if you're looking for a more post-metal vibe, a more kind of like shoegazy, really stony feel, the song Pining Forever is probably actually one of my favorites to do so. It spends a majority of its time just in this really spacey, stony sort of vibe. Like this, I would love to see at Red Rocks in Colorado, just right at the sunset, just out in the middle of nowhere, staring up into space. It's got that kind of vibe to it. Gave me a big reminder of the Smashing Pumpkins' Siamese Dream album. It's got that kind of vibe to it when it comes to the melodies and the layering going on. And when they actually jam, like it's not heavy, but it's got that Smashing Pumpkins sort of vibe.
There's a lot of like 90s alternative, like that heavier side. Again, like Hum is a band I think is very comparable in terms of like a lot of the heavier, like denser riffs. Like it's not heavy in the sense of like, oh my god, monolithic fucking chugging.
Right.
It's heavy in the sense that the tone is very rich and very full, and what they're playing is super layered. But there's a lot of clean play on here. Like not only are the giant clean breaks on Pining Forever and Specific Resonance and Evergreen, really cool. They do a lot of cool like post-metal builds off there, especially on Specific Resonance. They get into this absolutely awesome riff with this cool slide in it. Like it's kind of like bluesy heavy. I don't know. I just dig the hell out of it.
Bluesy, but like also a little bit doomy. It's just got that kind of vibe to it.
But Flickering Stillness, that one kind of like builds off of just like mostly clean melodies. In fact, it isn't until like the last 2 minutes of the song where it really starts getting heavy. A lot of it, I feel like, is kind of like a whole tension and release thing, except they're kind of releasing the tension differently. Instead of like getting into these big, heavy, chuggy riffs, the moment when you think they're going to hit, because a lot of it, again, is very clean, very moody sounding. It starts off with isolated guitars. You have soft percussion, like legit, it's just the kick drum and the hi-hat. And then as it starts to build, you feel like, all right, this is the part where they just slam me over the head with a giant riff. it's a cleaner tone. It's still playing like this kind of like heavier tone, but you can kind of feel the intensity that is slowly kind of welling up. And when it comes down to like these longer songs, they're really good about building that intensity very slowly. Like they're not quick to erupt. It's a slow, sort of like patient build. And by the time the last 2 minutes comes, you know, the big lush guitars there, the crescendo is absolutely huge. You know, that patience has kind of paid off because it's just an absolutely monolithic song.
Now, by this time, if you're not actually really sold on this record, the last track and one of my personal favorites, Wandering Mind, opens up with this droning bass, and then it kicks in with this slow swagger, and it's honestly one of the catchiest moments on this record. It's been stuck in my head since we listened to it. But the whole thing is just like going out on the town, and you're dressed up in spiffies, and you're just walking around going, hey.
For me, I mean, honestly, this is like a pelican visiting the desert, which that's not the place for that bird. I don't think it would do well.
No.
But it has like a big desert rock sort of vibe, especially at first. Like this is a long, drawn out, vibey song, and I absolutely love it. I compared it to like a drive through the desert, but into the mountains. Like you were watching the scenery change because the desert rock vibes right away are huge. We're talking like bands like Caius and the Atomic Bitchwax, or Monster Magnet, but with like a Pink Floyd sort of vibe too. But as it kind of builds up and gets more intense and gets more grand, this is where you start entering the mountains. Everything is much bigger. You know, these huge cascading melodies and such. You know, it changes as it keeps going. But I like that towards the end of the song, it shrinks back down to its core elements, because the core elements are the bass and drums. They drive this song. It's that same swing, that same swagger throughout the entire song, and it just holds you there. And in terms of like the guitars, they do a great job of like just kind of communicating that vibe. The cleaner tones with that delay on there, like it's just a moment. Like you're just kind of just sucked into this moment. It's big, it's open, and I like the fact that it just kind of shrinks back down to its bare elements at the end and just fades out. That might be my favorite track on this album, just because it feels like a perfect road trip song. Like honestly, I could have listened to that whole groove and that whole guitar play thing for like a solid 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, it's very catchy. It will get stuck in your head. That droning bass that's going on there, you've got no choice but to scat it in your mind, because that's what's happening.
Now, as far as any negatives on this, you know, inevitably, I am going to compare this to their Pelican albums, and that's tough because they have put out some absolutely incredible albums. I do think this one is a little bit better than Nighttime Stories, but I will say that the vibe on this one, while I like the shimmering, bright melodies and that kind of like summery feel, I kind of wanted a little bit more in the way of like the heftier songs. Like I could have used another song like Cascading Crescent. A lot of this feels a little bit more like major chord driven. Like there's not a lot of like, you know, like oppressive dark sections, which I mean, like Pelican, I wouldn't say is like the heaviest band, but when they do get heavy, it's generally pretty substantial. And generally with the Pelican album, I don't feel like I have to do that much searching to find like heavier moments in here. Here, like the whole front half of here is very melodic and very shimmering. It's still really well done. The melodies are nice. You know, you don't get a lot of like the big post-metal builds and like, you know, deconstruction and, you know, building it back up until like, you know, a little bit later in the album. But, you know, that's kind of my main complaint. And it didn't necessarily take me out of it, but again, I kind of wanted like that complete like Pelican sound where you get like a couple like good blisteringly heavy tracks. Something that is a little bit more chuggy, a little bit more downtrodden, like still catchy, but something that, you know, doesn't necessarily shimmer all the time.
I will readily admit that it has been many, many moons since I jammed Pelican. It's just not something that appears on my playlist, especially within the last few years, on a daily basis. I listened to this band a lot when I was in my, say, early to mid-20s, when I was really into instrumental kind of stony bands like this. And so my comparisons won't be necessarily to records. It'll just be that I think this record is a lot brighter and a lot more focused on, like, big spacey moments and big like crystal clear, serene moments. Spent a lot of time really happy. It puts you in a pretty much zen-like state, and I do remember Pelican being a little bit heavier, and so this record, while void of those heavy moments, is still presented really well. So I don't know if you can call that a negative, it's just not as heavy as I remember them to be. So overall, I'm going to go ahead and give this record 3 stars. It's still pretty solid. It again is very reflective, very open, very stony, very relaxed, a lot of zen-like moments. It's tough to review instrumental records overall anyway, because you're not latching onto the same kind of hooks that you would find in a vocally driven album. This record does kind of split itself in 2 halves. The first 4 songs I think are very different from the back half of the record, the last 4 songs. The first 4 songs being very big and open and bright, and the last half being more focused on things like grooves. It gets a little bit darker, it gets a little bit heavier at times, like the progressions are stem more into building on these big giant melodies, which is really cool. The production on here is excellent. This is the way that it would sound live at this point. Like, this is kind of what they wanted to go on. For me, the big standout track would be the last track, Wandering Mind. Again, that is the jam on the record. But overall, it wasn't bad. It's a Pelican record. And again, I can't say too much because I haven't listened to Pelican in a very long time, but this is a good, solid record. Like, it's a good, solid offering. It may not be exactly what I wanted to hear out of this band, but it was still done very well. If you're into bands like Russian Circles, of course, Tides, Baroness, COC, even some old Smashing Pumpkins, I'm going to tell you, it's in there. You're probably really going to dig this, and if you're a longtime Pelican fan, this record is definitely worth a listen.
I'm at a 3.5. I enjoyed this just maybe like a little bit more. Baseline, again, I could just say that this is a Pelican album, and that would generally be enough. It's still very riff-driven. It's a little bit brighter than I was expecting, but still, it makes for, I don't know, like kind of like good mood music. In terms of the big standout tracks for me, the ones that I latch onto are the ones that are a little bit more adventurous. You know, the last half of this album, I think, is absolutely awesome. And Wandering Mind might be a new favorite from this band in general. Like, the vibe on that song is just absolutely amazing. But this is Pelican doing everything I think that Pelican does really well. The layered guitars, the intricate melodies, and good counter melodies, harmonies. Like, their guitar work is low-key, just, you know, like very intricate and very awesome. And I love the atmospheres that they build, and the builds in terms of like building from clean stuff to the heavy crescendos. They're doing it well. But again, like, I think Pelican has definitely done a lot of this stuff before and maybe arguably done it better, but I'm still not going to kick this one out of bed for eating crackers.
Yeah.
I'm going to welcome it back into bed, but also tell it, like, listen, just, you don't have to bring crackers into bed. There's a fucking kitchen. Baseline, I mean, if you're a longtime Pelican fan, I'm pretty sure you're going to dig this. Also, again, Russian Circles, Cave In, Hum, stuff like that. Check this album out. You know, good to have Pelican back. Hopefully catching them when they're on tour. I think they're actually playing in Cleveland in August, maybe. But just check this one out. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and our lone perk is doing a members-only stream, which we will probably do one sometime after we get back from Maryland Death, after we're broke, sunburned, and our feet hurt, and we'll probably complain about all those things in that stream. But we'll also probably tell some stories about all the cool people we met and, you know, the fun places we ate, and of course, the bands we saw. Anyway, memberships are the main way to support the channel now. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our t-shirts and hats. That is linked down below. And of course, if you would like to join this channel and talk about bands that are named after waterfowl, like this one, you can do that. We probably won't talk about that very often, but who knows, it might come up.
And even if you don't click the join button, that's cool too. We have other live streams that are not necessarily catered towards our members. They are both equally stupid, just so you know. Tons of stuff coming your way, album reviews, discography rankings. We got At the Gates coming up next, which we'll definitely get into after we get back from MDF. We have a new segment that kind of runs in tandem with that, the Thralls Greatest Hits. We think it's pretty cool. You guys might like it. You seem to like it. That was really neat. Nick's Never-Ending Collection update. States of Metal. Is it metal? Is it not metal? All metal all the time. We do it all for you guys because we appreciate you being here. Thank you for everybody that continues to show up for us and pay attention and comment and do all the wonderful things you do. We couldn't do it here without you, so big, big thank you to you and you and you and you over there.
Yeah, you guys absolutely roll. Tons of content coming your way. So one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.